Paul now addresses in chapters 5, verses 12 to 14, the issue of what started the whole problem of sin in the world. In 3 short verses, Paul introduces a massive teaching that's vital for our understanding of how deep the issue of sin really is. First of all, he confirms the story of Adam and Eve and the eating of the forbidden fruit. Sin came into the world through one man. But even though it was Eve who ate the fruit first, Paul says that sin came into the world through one man. Now, of course, some of the ladies listening to this will be thinking to themselves, I really don't need to go to all the trouble of creating a Zoom teaching to tell them that the problem started with a man. You'd want to say that you knew that already. But on a more serious note, the responsibility for the commandment not to eat the fruit was given to Adam. Eve was obviously aware of the command because she talks about it to Satan. But we're not told how she knew. Did Adam tell her, or did God? I suggest to you that it was Adam. If God had directly told Eve, why would he hold Adam responsible for what she had done if he'd told her himself? So she was directly responsible then if God had spoken to her. But the scriptures in Timothy clearly say that she was deceived, but Adam wasn't. What he did deliberately. The consequences of that act of disobedience meant that death came into the world and spread to everyone in the world. Now, why did it spread to everyone else? Because Paul says everyone sinned. Now that seems simple enough until you read the next verse. Sin, says Paul, was in the world but wasn't counted against people because there were no laws in place saying what should or shouldn't be done. And yet, Paul says death, the consequence of sin, was evident in everyone's life, from the time of Adam to the time of Moses when the law was given. Even clearer than that, Paul says that death happened to people who hadn't sinned in the way Adam had. And they couldn't sin the way Adam had because the Garden of Eden was guarded by cherubim, so people couldn't go in and take any of the fruit that was there. So how then did sin and death spread to Adam's children and their children after them? By the simple process of having children. Adam passed on his now sinful makeup to every child he produced, and every man-child after him did the same. You can now see the force of Paul's previous argument in chapter 4 when he talked about Abraham and circumcision. Children of faith don't come through natural means. Humankind needs a spiritual cutting off of the flesh, and circumcision was a natural sign to Abraham of a spiritual truth. Then, of course, there's the greatest birth in all history, the birth of Jesus. How did that come about? Not through a man, but through the Holy Spirit. Born of a woman, yes, but born of the Spirit in the body of a woman. Because the corrupt nature comes through a man, not through a woman. Now, what else can be learned from these few short verses? Well, fundamentally, that sin starts from who you are, not from what you do. You're a sinner and you do sinful things, not you do sinful things and therefore are a sinner. Why does that matter? Well, if you want to deal with sin, forgiving what one does is important, but it doesn't go deep enough if it doesn't deal with the source of why a sin was committed in the first place. In the UK, we used to have cold water storage tanks in the loft. In India, everyone has a storage tank on the top floor of their houses. Now, suppose one day I notice a puddle of water on the floor. Possibly my first reaction will be to wipe it up with a cloth. I might even do that a second time if it appears again. But after that, I want to find the source. I go to the tank and I find that there's a large slit in the tank and it can't be repaired. What's the solution? I need to replace the source of the problem, the tank that can't be repaired. I need to replace it with a new tank. And that's the issue with sin. I need more than just continual forgiveness for sins committed. I need the old nature taken out and a new nature put in so that we can deal decisively with the source of the problem. And that's what Paul is starting to teach and will communicate fully in chapter 6 of Romans. Before that, he wants to compare Adam and his children with Christ and those who become his children through faith. And that will be the subject of our next study in a few days' time.